This is Mpho Nenweli. This is the Pain, Suffering, and Happiness podcast. This podcast will help you to live fully. Pain and suffering form the beauty of life. Embrace the pain, keep pushing, and be impactful one day at a time. Yesterday is history, and tomorrow is a mystery. All you have is now. Today's podcast will focus on a very interesting but sensitive topic about the pain of rejection and how to overcome it. The podcast is about the pain of rejection and how to overcome it. I will discuss what is rejection, the social nature of human beings, causes of rejection, results or consequences of rejection, and how do we overcome it. I'll start by outlining what is rejection. Rejection is actually a feeling of not being accepted. It can also be a situation where your partner leaves you for someone else. It can also be in the form of being expelled from work, being excluded in a family, or not being considered part, being an outcast, and also people not wanting to be around you, being unloved, hated. That is part of rejection. It is important to understand that why rejection is such an important thing to look at. It's because as human beings, we are social by nature. We want to belong. We build our identities around a sense of belonging, and this can be belonging to a family or a group of friends, having siblings, and belonging to a particular community. And belonging can also be to a social club, a church, a political organization. So we want the warmth of being appreciated by other individuals. The issue of being acknowledged and being seen to be of some form of value is quite very important to us as human beings. What are the causes of rejection? There's quite a lot of causes of rejection, and these include thinking differently. As an example, you can be seen as a non-conformist, one who seems to be off tangent or taking a different direction all the time. You get rejected because of that. Sometimes neglect from parents, who sometimes may also be going through a lot or having been rejected themselves, can create a sense of rejection in the child. If you are sickly and of no value, you do get rejected by society. Society doesn't like people who are sickly, people who are suffering, or people who are struggling in life. If you are losing wealth or your social standing in society, you also start to feel a sense of rejection as the people that were close to you, who seem to love you dearly, start to withdraw. And sometimes also being highly educated can lead to a situation where you are seen as a snob or a coconut or somebody who is quite very arrogant, and leading you to being rejected. If you are also wealthy, you can also be seen to be greedy, selfish, and arrogant. And then a particular part of society, or your family members or siblings, or sometimes even your parents, can reject you because they are not getting what they think they can get from you, or they feel that they're not getting enough, and they can start to ostracize you and call your names. The other thing also is also being a non-conformist. If you are unmarried, you can be seen in some cases, in some societies, as a prostitute. If you are uncircumcised, you can also be seen to be someone of a low level, as a man or a woman. And in some cases also, rejection can come in the form of just being hated. Some people can just see you and dislike you without knowing you or without having interacted with you. If you're too close to managers at work, you can also be seen to be a sellout and also get rejected. In some societies, also, not having children can also lead to rejection, as a man and both as a woman. Having a nice house also, I've heard of some people staying in villages where some villages will be complaining that there's one or two families that have got the best houses in the place, and they really are behaving in a very arrogant way because they stay in the best houses, leading to some form of rejection. They are seen as people that are not accessible. They are of the higher class, and they get hated sometimes for just being purely successful out of their own endeavors. Also, it can also come in the form of not, fitting into the norms and expectations of society or the family. Um, if you're not gifted, for example, intellectually, you also get rejected, because society prefers the brilliant, the wise, the ones that pass at school and get particular positions, the ones who don't excel in the one-size-fit-all educational system that we have set. They are rejected. They are seen as the bottom of the pile, and they are not deemed of being worthy or of any form of success. The narrow definition that we have put in of success has led to a lot of people, the majority of people, being rejected in things such as, for example, the educated. Those who are considered to be very successful and most important are your engineers, your lawyers, your professors, your doctors. So if you don't fit into the mold, you get rejected. And you also find that the people with those particular qualifications tend to also elevate themselves and ill-treat other people and reject the rest of society, look down upon other people, despite the fact that no person can do much for himself without the support of the other people within the community. Even the lowest person, the one who sleeps under the bridge, who is homeless, has got a contribution. That person might be waking up and recycling waste, contributing to the betterment of the environment and humanity at large. So we all have a role to play. Rejection can also be attributed to the race in which you belong. In some countries, for example, here in South Africa, there is a very deep-seated history of racism. and black people are the bottom of the pile. And this is attributed to the fact that they really don't own anything. I mean, we don't own land, we don't own the economy. Um, so we depend on other races for most of our products. It can be universities, can be private schools, can be goods that are manufactured, can also be in agriculture. Um, you know, we almost literally everything has been taken away from us. So you feel rejected as a black person, and you feel you have to work 1,000 times more in order to succeed because the odds are stacked against you. You don't have access to the means of production, be it land, be it economic resources, and market for whatever goods and services you might want to provide. It may not be easy to penetrate and compete with companies that were established over the apartheid years, that have got to develop roots and a lot of knowledge and expertise. It can also come in the form of gender. Women tend to be ostracized, suppressed. They don't get the positions they deserve or the remuneration they deserve. There is a very sense of rejection that they feel, and they have to work 100 times harder in order to achieve the same as their male counterparts. Belonging to some tribes can also lead to rejection. In particular areas, there are some tribes that feel that they are more important than the others. They must also have all the jobs, occupy the political positions, run the government. In some places, for example, in India, you've got the caste system where some particular tribes, people are told, you are not deserving to get particular jobs, go to university, you get, rejected and seen as a low level, low class, incapable, inferior, and not productive or capable of anything good. It can also be in the form of witchcraft. The issue of witchcraft has become very much um, emphasized or strongly elevated, and this is because of the growth of religion in various parts of the world. Religion normally goes with the whole issue of a god and an opponent in the form of a devil, and a hero in the form of the savior. It can be a messiah, and then at the same time there's a evil force that is attacking you. So there's a very serious overemphasis emphasis of the issue of the evil force against you, the witches against you. This has created some people to be labeled as witches, as being destructive and rejected in particular communities, and in some cases killed and their properties destroyed, and conflicts are fueled mainly by religious dogma. You can also be rejected because you are viewed as a traditionalist, somebody who wants to practice culture and issues of heritage. So you get considered to be backwards, or to be believing in, juju, or some traditional healers, things that are not considered to be good in modern society or for the educated class, not Western enough. So you get rejected because of your way of living, the culture that you've adopted. And if you tend to practice what the people that have passed on to practice, then you are labeled as an ancestor worshiper, or somebody who is very backwards and not moving with the times. Sometimes also rejection comes in the form of parental segregation. Some parents have a tendency of favoring one child over the other. And this can be because the other child is more gifted than the other. They can benefit more from the other child and not from the rest of the children. In some cases, it can also just be one child who just liked, even the child is not contributing anything positive. The child is probably drunk or somebody just drinking and he doesn't even care much about himself. So that is something that creates a form of rejection for those children that are not shown love, that are segregated, that are disregarded and looked down upon because they don't have the means to provide a better life for their parents. Sometimes also this segregation can come in the form that a parent can feel like this child came out of a mistake. I don't like this child. I'll give an example. For example, a person like Steve Jobs was born from a father who was an immigrant from Syria, and the mother was of a German descent and of a Christian origin. And becoming pregnant was something that was frowned upon, and the parents didn't accept. So, and it led to Steve Jobs being, sort of rejected by the parents. They felt that they couldn't handle him, they couldn't accept the situation, and he was then adopted, and hence the surname Jobs is not necessarily the surname of any of his biological parents. That is another form of rejection. What are really the consequences or the results of rejection? There's quite an array of consequences. That's why I felt that this topic needs to be discussed, because it's a thing that people battle with, uh, amongst themselves without being able to discuss with other people. People don't want to discuss the bad stuff in our society. You don't want to show a sign that you're struggling or you're suffering or you're facing some difficulties in life. So rejection really leads to a lot of consequences, and one of which is trauma. For example, sometimes if you have worked very hard over the years for people, sacrificed a lot, put them first, and then when they reject you, it can cause you emotional trauma, psychological trauma. So it can come up with a very bad feeling emotionally. So you can feel the pain physically. It can break down your body. You can develop diseases and struggle to operate properly as a proper human being. It can also lead to a feeling of uselessness, being unworthy of life, and where you start to ask yourself, why did God create you, and why are you in such a world which is so cruel, with people who are so hateful, who are competing, and then they want to have everything for themselves. It can create rejection, can create anxiety, stress, and also depression, leading to very serious mental health issues where you become completely dysfunctional. It can also force a person to start to look for love desperately, and sometimes in very bad places. You can be looking for love in beer halls, in prostitutes, in drug addicts, where a person who is rejected is trying to find some sense of meaning or sense of belonging. It can also lead to self-hate and a lot of cruelty to the self, where you start to blame yourself on a lot of things that you have done and become angry to the sense that you crucify yourself because you feel like you are useless, you are evil, and you are bad, because you start to count your own mistakes because of a sense of being rejected overwhelming you and not finding a way to deal with it. It can also lead to suicide or suicidal thoughts, because life becomes meaningless. Sometimes you get rejected and you can become even a hermit, to the point sometimes you feel like you can leave your village, your family, disappear and go and start a life in a place where nobody knows you, where you can just be something else. It can really bring a lot of shame, because you will be seen as somebody that is a misfit, not wanted, somebody who has lost the battle against the pursuit of a good life. That's why rejection needs to be something that we look at very closely and we need to discuss and allow people to ventilate and discuss their own feeling of being rejected. Sometimes also it can create a feeling of being neglected, in the sense that, if you are an adopted child, you can feel that the parents that are with, you are staying with, are not giving you the warmth that you need, because you don't know what could have happened if you had stayed with your own biological parents. So it can create a lot of emotional conflict and self-doubt. There's also a very interesting saying that we have, which I would like to quote, which also relates to the issue of the other, or people whom we reject. So, for example, they say every family has got a black sheep. That saying creates an impression that there will always be a bad child within a family, and that bad child must be, identified, isolated, and considered to be a troublesome one, because that child is a misfit, is not conforming to the norms or the expectations of the family. And the other thing also is the issue of suffering. If you suffer deeply in this life, you get rejected. Sometimes also to the point that if you are sick and the doctors cannot find any cure for you, they also reject you. They see you as the cursed one, as the one who, in some cases, has brought him or herself the suffering from the sickness or the disease. It can also lead to the issue of a deep-seated wounds within our own hearts, pain and suffering. Rejection is a very painful thing, and it can create very dark experiences within our minds that we are afraid to confront. And because these dark experiences, they lead to intense pain and suffering. It can also lead to violence. You become very angry with humanity and other people. So you might just start to feel like everybody is your enemy and they are there to destroy you. And then you might as well just destroy them first before they destroy you. So rejection can lead really to very angry people who are dejected and violent and destructive to humanity. It can really also lead to a very, very low self-esteem, where a person can self-isolate, feel useless, and in most cases, ultimately kill themselves. One of the things that we need to look at is, how do we then deal with rejection? How do we overcome it? There is quite a lot of things that we can do to overcome it. And one of the things is to start by accepting that you, as an individual, you are unique. And it doesn't matter if you are a gay or a straight or a Muslim, there is a uniqueness in you. That's why your fingerprint is not found in any other human being. So embrace your uniqueness and appreciate the fact that you are here to bring that uniqueness, and it is a value that you have been brought to add in this particular earth. The other thing also, we need to understand that we cannot please everyone. There will always be haters, no matter what you do. You do nothing, there will be haters. You do something, there will be haters. You succeed, there will be haters. You fail, there will also be people that will be laughing at you. One way or another, as long as you're alive, you will be talked about, and there will be people who like you and people who hate you. You also have to understand that you are not your title, your profession, your talent, or your religion. Do not define yourself by things that you have grown to like, or things that you uh, associate with, or because you were raised in them and you were born in a particular place or area. Those things tended to be part of the culture and you were, immersed in them. Do not define yourself about, using things that you learned along the way, because immediately those things are affected negatively. You will start not to like yourself or to like life. Just know that you are above, you are more than your talent. You are more than your profession or your title. You are much more than your position at work. It is also important as a way of healing from rejection to practice what the Japanese refer to as Shinrin-yoku, and that is simply means forest bath. Try as much as possible to immerse yourself in nature, especially us who spend so much time in the urban areas where we just look at buildings and concrete all the time. It's quite very depressing. The air is polluted. People are stressed out. You are driving on the roads. There's so much anger and violence, So we need to be considerate of those things and take ourselves out of this environment occasionally. Go and sit near the water, near the lake, climb the mountain, do the hiking, really get the body to release the pressures that we are encountering or we have within ourselves due to the intense capitalist system that we work in, which feeds on people's blood. There's also a need to really make efforts to focus on positive things and also live one day at a time, uh, so that you don't have to crucify yourself by worrying about things that will happen 5 and 10 years ahead, which you are not even sure will happen and which are 90% of the time not likely to happen. Rather, worry about what you can do today, because this is the day you have been given. That's why this moment is called the present moment, because it is a present. It is presented to you by the Creator. So that is what you need to worry about and care about. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. You may not even wake up being there. So don't stress too much and project your life too far ahead and miss the opportunity to enjoy this present moment, the now, because the now is all that you have. Do not trust everyone, because once you get betrayed, you will feel a very deep sense of rejection. So be careful of trusting too much, because people are in the pursuit of their own personal agendas. And in particular, in some of these places, like the urban areas, people have lost their humanity. It's a dog eat dog. The capitalist system is squeezing people. People are becoming evil, not sometimes because they like it, but because the system is so evil and they're finding it hard to find the means to live and to afford to meet their daily needs. Also, be intentional in making yourself happy. This can mean to learn to play a particular music instrument, to read a book, and also simplify life. Do away with the burdens. Accumulating a lot of stuff as a way of finding happiness is not a good thing. It is known that most of us, we use 20% of the clothes that we buy. 80% just lies idle in the closet or in the wardrobe. Make your life light by giving away stuff that you don't use to the needy who are going to use these things and really appreciate and love them. So try to live with less, and you will feel the warmth of the universe by being giving rather than accumulating and taking all sorts of things and piling up your house with gadgets and clothes and sometimes cars, or continuous pursuit of material things that just give, you know, your, a dopamine rush for a particular period, and then they wane away. They don't give long-term fulfillment. And also really avoid things that are for instant gratification, where we just buy things sometimes to nurse rejection. When you feel rejected, you just go and even buy stuff using diets to really create a sense of dopamine rush or a sense of temporary happiness that dissipates within a short space of time. So don't do that. Because it worsens the feeling. You just revert back, rather confront the challenge, and then create a situation where you can be happy internally and without being driven by material accumulation. Live within your means, even if it means living in a shack. That is all that you have at that point in time. And as long as that is a roof over your head, be proud of it and wake up and tell yourself you will rise and have a better life. So just make sure that you don't stretch yourself too much. I've seen people stretch themselves because they want to be accepted. They want to live in particular areas which they cannot afford, and they are living on a month-to-month basis. And when anything happens, they are on the street. I would love to quote this statement by Deepak Chopra that I like a lot, which I use in most cases, when he says, you need to accept that things are the way they're supposed to be, and you must blame no one, including yourself. So do not go and feel very pained by the fact that you are being rejected. It is the way it's supposed to be. Accept it. And you must not also blame anyone, because it just perpetuates a lot of suffering. And do not blame yourself, because also you will be crucifying yourself for things sometimes that you have got no control over. Just know that in life there are many things that you cannot change, and you just need to accept them. And also, life is a cycle. There are periods of happiness and suffering, but there's also a period of wealth and poverty. All these things will always be there. They will happen. They will fluctuate from one time to the other. You must also acknowledge that rejection will bring with you pain and suffering, but rather, instead of fighting with the pain and suffering, acknowledge that suffering and embrace the pain, and make sure that it can build you into a better person who is more productive and contributing positively to humanity. Always look for the silver lining in your situation of rejection, pain, and suffering. There is always beauty in the pain. You just have to look for it and you'll find it. The other thing also, to avoid rejection, especially at the workplace, start to have a thinking that and a belief that you are working for God or for a superior power, and then whatever job you are doing is a calling that you have been made to do. That way you will minimize worry, from being rejected by your enemies or haters. Journal about your rejection, your pain, and your suffering. That is another form of releasing, instead of holding things within you and kill yourself spiritually and emotionally. Write a book. I've learned a lot. I've written books that sometimes I may not even publish because they are too dark. They talk about the bad part or the very difficult part that I have confronted in my life. But writing a book about those dark areas, the dark stuff that we don't want to touch in our lives because they bring some bad emotions, pain, and suffering, helps us to exorcise the demons that haunt us. all the time. If you don't confront the demons, they lie low, but they will always be there. So rather face them, write things down, release, and then you'll feel a very good, um, improvement within your spirit and your soul. One of the practical things that is good to do if you're a spiritual person is just to take a piece of paper and write all the things that you have experienced out of rejection, all the anger, all the people you hate, all the people you feel they're not treating you fairly. You write it down, you can pray over the paper, and then you burn it. Then that way you release your your attachment to the rejection, to the pain, and to the suffering. Also, try and seek professional help. Consult psychiatrists, psychologists, because these people are skilled in giving you, the means to survive or to navigate situations of rejection, pain, and suffering. Also know that in life that not all the problems have any of solutions, including consulting psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors. There are things that they cannot cure. There are things that they have no solution. For example, what can a psychologist tell you if you go and say, my father, slept with my partner? What will the psychologist say? Hate your father, go kill your father, or go kill your partner. There are things that they also don't have solutions for. Uh, just also embrace the fact that you are not perfect. That way you will deal with a lot of rejection, because you are not perfect, and do not try to be perfect, because that also in itself is a form of self-harm, and it can create a lot of pain and suffering. Learn the art of breathing, because it can help a lot when you're dealing with anxiety, stress, and suffering. Continuing also on the things that we can do to deal with the rejection, you can also do meditation. I found meditation to be really very healing and very important in terms of coping with the suffering that we endure in this world. It's also nice to meditate because it's such a neutral concept. It's not really related to religion per se. Um, I think it's something that grounds us mentally. To also helps us to withdraw from the day-to-day activities, and also to really calm down and immerse ourselves within the environment in which we are, and be conscious about what we are doing and what is happening to our lives, instead of just rushing through the life, which is common in most of the Western world. And you just wake up, you're 60 years old, you don't really know, any good life, and you've spent a lot of time rushing up and down, and without really taking a moment to really reflect and appreciate the life, the miracle of just being alive. Doing things such as yoga, I think it's quite very important to cope with rejection, pain, and suffering. Traveling and also learning the various wonders of the world, it's quite also very healing, because we tend to start to appreciate and see other cultures and see other people enduring more suffering than we are, and we start to realize that there's more difficulties out there. We just have to embrace our own journeys, despite the pains that we engage, we find, and the suffering that comes out of that. We also need to be open-minded in order to learn from other people who are, suffering just like us, who have been rejected themselves, who have managed to rise above rejection and the haters. Joining online communities can also help, in particular on Facebook. There are communities that can help one cope with a lot of rejection, pain, and suffering. You can find communities dealing with issues such as disease, such as, anxiety and depression. You can get people that can talk the language that relates to your own, challenges that are leading to you being rejected. There's a need also to seek a balance in life, where one can work less, earn a bit more, and find time to really relax and enjoy life. I think life has to be fun. Life has to be something that is not a drag. It must not feel like it's a form of imprisonment. It must not feel like we are doing something against our own will. It must be something that we enjoy, and we feel like it must not come to an end. We need to also exercise a lot of self-care. That simply means, exercising, eating the right food, avoiding drugs, in terms of medication, using herbal remedies. There's quite a lot of benefit there. So self-care is quite very important. Don't wait until the wheels of life have come off and then you start to make amends. They say in English, prevention is better than cure. So rather prevent things than to wait for a moment when you have to cure. I know from experience, by the time you realize you are in a difficult situation, it costs far much more. And then you also don't find the cure for the challenge that you have. It is also important to push oneself for self-sustainability because we are living in a cruel capitalist system where things are just becoming more expensive and unaffordable. Uh, Homelessness is increasing even in the Western world. People in Canada, in America, where the weather is even very cruel, people are becoming homeless. People are sleeping in cars, and the weather is also quite very harsh. So capitalism is really challenging us, and we need to look for a way to look after ourselves and be self-sustainable. Produce a little bit of the food we eat, grow a little bit of vegetables, find a way to return to the land and plow and have animals and then be independent in some form or another. Then also, it is important to plan for the hard days in the form of having savings, joining some social groups like for burial or for groceries. It can be very helpful to deal with in moments when you're cast away or rejected by your partner or your spouse or your parents or your siblings. Accept that nothing in life is guaranteed. Uh, Even marriage or a job or a profession, nothing is guaranteed. Anything can happen at any time. Things can turn for the worst within a split second. So embrace the bad days. It's just part of the journey. Accept that anyone can reject you, including the people who brought you on this earth, your parents, siblings, close family members, your partner, your children, your friends, your colleagues at work, your priest, your partner, your fellow church members. When things are bad and you have made some serious mistakes, people tend to run away and they will not come to defend you or to say, okay, it's fine, you have made a mistake. We embrace you. It's human. You can still pick up and move on. Contribute to a higher good in order to find a lot of meaning within yourself and to deal with the rejection in that way. That way you feel that you are of value when you help other people in need. Be careful also about the people who use you, who want to benefit out of your kindness. So these are the people that at some point in time, they will be the quickest ones to run away and reject you. It is important that you be yourself and make peace with that. Accept the beauty of your uniqueness, of this creation that God has made, which is not a mistake, despite the challenges that comes with it. Either you're disabled or you're facing some serious sickness or illness, still feel that you are a beauty on this earth. And as long as you're still alive and you have not, taken your last breath, there's a contribution you can make. Even if you're lying on a bed, there's a value you can add, you know. So find meaning in your life, contribute positively, leave a mark. Finally, I would like to point out that we need to also to note that rejection is quite a very bad thing, and it really leads to a lot of pain and suffering. But that is part of life. And if somebody is being rejected in pain and suffering, lend a hand. Don't laugh at that particular person. Also know that that which does not kill you will build you. It will make you stronger. Those are the words of the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Be mature enough to accept rejection and failure. These are the two most important things that will always occur in our life. They are guaranteed to happen at one point or another. Rejection does not mean that you are not good enough. It also just means that the person who's rejecting you has not made an effort to appreciate the value that you bring, the value that you add. Even if you are unemployed, there's still a value you can add. Even if you don't have much, you can add value. Each of us is carrying a burden, uh, but people are suffering immensely. But there's no need to create a situation where we reject other people, look down upon other people, hate other people because they're just poor or they're struggling in life. Rejection is something that we must fight against all odds because it's very destructive to humanity. Going further again on how to handle rejection, I think do not let other people's poison affect you. Don't let other people's anger, suffering spill into your own life to the point that you don't achieve the full potential of what you are capable of. Do not also be a solution to every problem. You are not God. So accept that you cannot solve all the problems under the sun, including those affecting your parents, even your spouse or children, and also siblings or the community at large. So accept that even if you have a little bit of means, people will want to use you to the point where you'll be left with nothing. And after you're left with nothing, they will reject you and laugh at you as somebody who's quite very stupid. So be conscious of the fact that you cannot sort out all the challenges that you face or other people face. And also know that God is in charge. Um, you know, um, do not blame people for the rejection, the pain and suffering, because it can just make you suffer much more. Rather, embrace the situation, accept the fact that you cannot be liked by all people. Also know that family is not necessarily in the form of bloodline, but it can be the people that you meet along the way who happen to love you dearly and who can lend a hand when things are more difficult. And also, it is important to note that in a situation where you are rejected, hated, you might resort to prayer, but also it's important to know that prayer sometimes may not necessarily be the panacea. It may not be the solution to everything, although it can help to soothe you spiritually, ease your soul in order to be able to live and accommodate some of the rejection, pain, and suffering. Just know that despite the fact that you pray as hard as you can, you will still encounter pain and suffering as much as you will also get to encounter happiness. Just like the four seasons of nature, it is normal to suffer and be happy at some point in time in life. To be in pain, it's also quite very normal. The other thing also it's very important to note is that take care of the people that you spend most of the time your time with. This includes your spouse and your children, because these are the people when things are bad, you are going to be looked after by them. These are the people that will stand by you when things are quite very bad. A friend of mine once said, when things are quite very hard and you find yourself with 5 people that care about you, you must consider yourself to be quite very lucky. So look after the very few people that you have very close to you, because you never know, one day you will need them, and they will be the ones that will carry the mountain on your behalf. Just know that you are not the only one who is rejected in life, in pain and suffering. There are many more people experiencing the same situation in one form or another, and in very challenging ways. Be a lifesmith. By being a lifesmith, I mean that invest in the simple things of life. That is, the joys of life, things that can bring you happiness. enjoy the music. Go out and catch a breeze. Go and listen to the birds singing. Go out and take a walk in the forest. Go and sit near a river and just listen to the ripples of water. The simple things of life will heal your rejection, pain, and suffering. Enjoy art, reading, play a musical instrument. Go and ride your bike. The simple things in life can bring immense happiness. And these are the things that we need to appreciate and make maximum use of. I would like to wrap up by saying that every rejection is a redirection. Embrace the fact that life is nudging you through the rejection into a better direction. Even if you are unsure about where it is taking you. So just know that rejection is a redirection, leading you to a better place. In closing, this is the Pain, Suffering, and Happiness podcast. This podcast will help you to live fully. Pain and suffering form the beauty of life. Embrace the pain. Keep pushing one day at a time. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. All you have is now. I thank you.